All right, welcome back to Wake Surfology, episode 9. I'm Dylan Ayala, and this is my co-host, Jake Breedlove. Today, we have a few different topics that we're going to talk about, but me and Jake just got back from some trips, and spent a lot of the time on the water. How was your trip, Jake?
It was really fun. I wasn't wake surfing, but I was on the water. I was in Rockbridge, Missouri, doing a little fly fishing trip with some buddies. So we had a blast. I came home with like 9 fish, um, all trout, rainbow trout. It was my first time fly fishing too, so that was really fun getting to learn to do that. It was a really fun time. But I do want to know, what was Powell like?
Yeah, so I went to Lake Powell. I go every year on a houseboat. It was so fun. It was pretty good weather. There was a thunderstorm every single night.
Sweet.
But it was a lot colder this year than normal. Usually it's like high 90s around this time of year, but usually the high was around like 95, maybe 93. So it wasn't super hot. And then like at night it got pretty cold, so that was nice. But
How
it's sorry, go ahead.
how cold do you think it would get at night?
At night it got down to like 55 some nights.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
Dang.
I actually ended up getting sick one day, just like a 24-hour bug.
Oh,
But
shoot.
yeah, that sucked. But it was so fun, dude. I went wake surfing a lot. Um, it's actually funny. Hannah's family and my family both have a houseboat the same week, so we were literally parked right up next to each other.
That's awesome.
And me and Hannah would just go like back and forth to each houseboat.
Little convoy.
Yeah, it was sick. My uncle has a Centurion, and then they also have Hannah's family has a Mastercraft and a Malibu. So I got a lot of wake surfing in. They had some e-foils there too, and we did like every sport there is on the water, even tubing, jet skiing, everything, dude. It was so fun.
That's so funny. Did y'all end up sleeping on the deck?
Yeah, me and Hannah the first few nights slept up top on the third deck. It's crazy because it's so dark out there, dude. There's so many stars, and
The
you just see like
stars.
satellites, and you can see everything, shooting stars. Um, but yeah, it's so fun there. It's such a big lake, dude. Like the houseboat trip out there, we stayed in Last Chance, so it was like 4 or 5 hours on the houseboat. We were
Dang.
just driving. I drove the houseboat out there. It was so fun. But on the way out, actually, the jet ski sunk behind the
Oh,
houseboat.
shoot.
Yeah, so like I guess waves came over it, and then like it submerged, and I guess like they went back there because I was driving the houseboat, and so I put it in neutral. It was
So it was
super
your
windy.
fault?
Maybe.
No, just kidding.
It could have been. But it was super windy, so I had to like keep the houseboat from blowing. It was pretty sketchy. Um, but I guess they went back there and the jet ski was just completely sunk, just holding on by the rope, and they were like they got it up, and yeah, it was crazy. A lot
No.
happened on that trip. It was so fun though.
Nice. Nice. That's really cool. I haven't been to Powell in a long time. I've only been when I was a kid. So getting to Powell is something on my to-do list.
It's so fun, dude, and the water you can always find pretty good water. The water's pretty clean, and it's actually filling up quite a bit this year, so it was fun.
Awesome. Great to hear. Well, we got some stuff we want to talk about this week. Last week we kind of discussed a lot about, differences between surf and skim and kind of how to, direct yourself to where you might want to go as far as what you want to ride, what tricks you like to do, what you like to watch. And so hopefully that was helpful, and we'll maybe touch on some of that again in this podcast with some of these other topics that we have. But we're gonna go ahead and start discussing some of these things. What do we got? What do we got here, Dylan? I believe we have had some questions from
Yeah.
some people.
Couple of random stuff mostly.
Yeah, that's okay. We can get into that.
Yeah. The first thing was fins. So, what was the question exactly?
I actually don't have the question written down right here.
It
but-
was just like different fins, length, different types.
Yeah, they were wanting to know, do you want stiff fins,
Mhm.
flexi fins?
Yeah.
Short, tall.
Yeah, so like in our boards, we have future fin boxes, so you can use any fin that uses like the future fin box type. There's a lot of different fins, and to be honest, I haven't tried a whole lot of fins.
I haven't either.
Yeah, so I mean, to start off, I mean every board comes usually with like white fins that are like kind of plasticky.
Oh yeah, some like generic fins.
Yeah, and those aren't very good at all. Um, What do you think about those?
Yeah, I went out on the boat yesterday with some friends, and one of them had one of his boards, and he had some of those cheap plastic default fins or whatever. And I gave him a little flex test just to see what they were like, and I could pretty much almost bend it in half. I was afraid it might snap, but they were a little too flexy. So if you were trying to use that, it probably wouldn't, create a lot of speed or give you a lot of control.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, those ones are plastic and like you said, super flexy. The fins that I have are carbon fiber, similar to like John Grom fins from Future.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, those are really the only fins I've kind of tried. I've tried some, but I've kind of just stuck with those. Those are like the first ones that I started with. And to be honest, I think it would be a good idea to try more.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I also haven't tried a ton of fins. I found the Geordie large fins early on, or I actually started with the mediums, but I loved those fins because they had a strong base. They had what's called like the honeycomb technology, which I honestly couldn't tell you exactly what that does,
Yeah.
but they had a pretty stiff base, but then they had a good amount of flex in the end of them, so they were helping me with softer waves or big bottom turns, and also generating speed and breaking out of the top of the wave. But as far as other fins that I've tried, I haven't tried a bunch. I know I've tried the black sticks, which I'm pretty sure are full carbon fiber, so they give you a lot of speed for a lot of less work.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't really necessarily know exactly what's the best out there or all the different options, but we can tell you some of the things like stiff or flexy, short or tall, or how many fins.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'd be cool to do like a test because like you said, I mean, we haven't tried a whole lot and obviously they make a difference. How big of a difference, I'm not sure. But like Colby, she uses, do you know which ones those are called or no?
I'm pretty sure they're the black sticks
Okay.
or a model of black sticks.
So like just looking at it, like ours, you said it's called the rake.
The rake, like how far back the fin kind of arches
Okay.
back.
Yeah. Hers is like, it's a little bit further past like the back end of the base, but not as far as I've noticed that ours is. Like when I look at her fins are like quite a bit different. And I wonder, like, those are better for spins, right?
Again, I don't necessarily know for sure,
Yeah.
but I've gotten on her board, and I mean, she only has 2 fins, but with those, actually, I take that back. I've put in her fins on my board,
Okay.
and they are slightly smaller, mainly because of less rake, which again is just how far back that fin kind of arches.
Yeah.
They have less rake, and they're very stiff. So I would say it spins pretty easily.
Yeah.
I feel like if there's more flex in a fin, it might not do like surface spins as nicely. Again, I don't know for sure, but just from what I feel like I've ridden, that's what I've experienced. And yeah, the stiff fins, you're pumping a lot less and you're getting a lot more speed from it. Whereas like my fins, they have a lot of flex, so I have to pump maybe a couple more times to get the speed I would get from stiff black sticks.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, if you were to recommend, at least get something better than those plastic white ones.
Yeah.
Anything is better than that.
Yeah, and the difference between those plastic ones and the other ones that we have, like Dylan's has carbon, but mine don't have carbon, and they might look like plastic and feel like plastic or whatever, but it's just like different glass, really. Again, I don't know exactly sure what they're made out of, but it's not plastic.
Yeah.
Like the ones that you get from those default boards.
Yeah. Yeah, and like there isn't a whole lot of wake surf specific fins. Have you noticed that? Like a lot of the fins are from ocean style boards.
That's true.
I think now a few brands are starting to make like wake surf specific fins. Like I've seen Soulcraft makes specific fins for wake surfing.
Okay.
I've never tried them, but I wonder how big of a difference that is. I mean, if you think about like the difference between an ocean board and an ocean and a wake surf board is so much different. So I wonder how much different the fins are as well.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, there hasn't been a lot of, science behind that, or a lot of people diving into that, figuring out, you know, can we do this to the fin to make it this specific for wake surfing, or do you even need to do anything different?
Yeah.
Um, but I do know, like you mentioned, there are some companies that are trying to be more wake surf specific.
Hmm.
And I see a lot of people using these one fins that I'm pretty sure they're called like 3D.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. They have
Um,
like the dimples on them.
yeah, they got the little dimples or like little concave dots on them, which is kind of cool.
It's like
I
a
don't.
golf ball.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm interested to try those and see what those are about.
Hmm.
Because a lot of people are liking them, and they have some cool designs on them.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's
They do
always
have some.
appreciated.
Yeah. Um, so 3D fins, at least something better than the white ones. Anything else on fins?
Yeah, the setup.
True.
Like how many fins, or like what kind of fins. I know when I first started, I was using a thruster setup. So that's the two twin fins and then one single fin closer
Oh
to the
wow.
rear. Um, and that third fin, the fin that I put in that fin box, it was still the same shape as the twin fins, but it was smaller. So it was like in between a nub fin and like your full size fin.
And what did that feel like?
I mean, it gave me like a really cool like surfy feel because the board and the fin setup really mimicked like an ocean board,
Yeah.
which was really fun to ride. But I learned, maybe a year or two into riding that thruster setup, like when you have a single third fin
Mm-hmm.
that is centralized in the middle, that fin actually hinders you from certain like surface rotations or even like taking off of the wave, just
Mm-hmm.
different things like that because it creates a lot of drag in the
Okay.
wave. It basically pulls the pivot point. Like when you do rotations or whatever, it pulls the pivot point farther back on the board,
Yeah.
closer to the tail.
So
And
you have to. It's harder on rotations.
yeah, like especially on a 360, you want the board to spin more in the center of the board in one spot as opposed to doing a bigger like circle because
Yeah.
spinning on a dime is easier than I don't know, spinning in a
Yeah.
circle.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because a lot of people will even ask the question of, can you still do a 360 with fins? Or like, I'll be on a lesson and they'll say, should I take out the fins to do a 360? And it's like, no, you don't need to take out the fins. The fins aren't what is preventing you. It's just a lot to it. So like fins aren't a bad thing for spins. It's just
Right.
maybe like the setup and learning how to disconnect the board because it seems like they're 4 or 5 inches long, so it seems
Yeah.
like it would really make it hard to rotate. But like you said, it also helps you get speed. So that's important too.
Yeah. And then so the thruster setup was the one I first used, and then I was told and started learning to use the quad setup. And so that's the two twin fins, and then instead of one single fin in the middle, it's two fin boxes that are, just as far back as that center fin, but they're, parallel with the other two on the outside, and they're kind of closer to that. They're not in the middle or closer to the center of the board. So when you do that, it kind of pulls the pivot point, in the center of all four of those fins, if you
Wow.
think about it like that. Maybe a little closer to the big fins.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have like a third fin creating drag like when you're trying to rotate and stuff,
Yeah.
which is really helpful. And then a lot of people ride twin fin, just the two fins, the main two fins, and that's how you ride. I know a lot of other riders ride like that. You have anything on that you want to mention?
Yeah, I haven't tried a quad setup in a long time. It's been a while. But I did have a few boards that had 4 fin boxes, and I would go back and forth between like those nubs, like you're talking, like being a quad fin, or sometimes I would take those nubs out. I would like to try it again on a board that is my size and compare them back to back and really maybe spend some time trying it because I haven't tried it in a long time, and like even getting used to a new board takes some time. So like you might not like it right away, but I don't know. I like twin fin as of right now, but maybe eventually I'd like to try quad again.
Yeah, and I think for me and Dylan at least, because we've ridden the same fin setup or similar fin setups our whole
Mm-hmm.
surfing life, um, it does, like, if we were to hop on a different fin setup, it would feel weird to us too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just because we know how to ride and we know about the fins doesn't mean we necessarily know how to ride with those fins the same
Right.
way. But it's still, something that you can learn, pick up pretty quickly. You
Mm-hmm.
just need a couple goes at it. It's kind of like if you're switching, like, from surf style to skim style. It's like this huge change, this huge
Yeah.
difference, and you feel it. And sometimes when you hop on the other, you're like, whoa, this feels weird.
Yeah.
It can be like that sometimes, but as long as you just ride it a few times, that odd feeling kind of goes away and you
Yeah.
get more
Yeah.
used to it.
Yeah. You can get used to stuff pretty fast, whether it's a board or different wax or traction, whatever it is. It just feels really weird at first.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And sometimes when you take out fins or add fins, you have to manipulate the board in different ways.
Yeah.
It's not like you can ride it the exact same way. You kind
Mm-hmm.
of have to adjust to how that board is going to start riding or allowing
Yeah.
you to do certain tricks.
Yeah, and there's different inputs too, even like from the shaper, the way that they angle the boxes, the fin boxes, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of different variables, and I don't think it's like one size fits all. I
Mm-mm.
think you got to kind of try it out and see what works for you. Obviously, we need to try them out too. We need to try some different fins, and I think it'd be cool to just test them all out in one day and just see what we like. Um, but as long as you get something better than those plastic ones, I think you're better than 90%.
Yes. And right now too, you don't necessarily have to worry too much about like where your fins are, like the fin boxes and stuff.
Yeah.
Like maybe like that's just very in depth, and like you don't necessarily have to go that deep into it because it can get very complicated and confusing and give you a lot of options that you might not know like how
Yeah.
to deal with. But just just try to focus on like how many fins you might want. That's the extent, and
Yeah.
then which fins.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you focus too much on like this fin feels like this and you're just constantly jumping from fin to fin, you're never getting used to one thing.
You're not gonna
Yeah.
know.
And you're not going to improve either. So, like, just stick to at least like a nicer fin. Try that out for a good amount of time and then maybe work into other fins. Like, it obviously is going to change how it rides, but I think more importantly, stick to one fin and figure that fin out and then maybe start to play with that. What do you think about that?
No, I definitely agree. And also too, like sometimes you might not feel a difference
Yeah.
in the fin setup that you switch out or whatever. So it's okay to admit that you literally don't feel any difference.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you decide from there. I guess you want to try something else because you
Yeah.
didn't feel a difference, but whatever.
Yeah, yeah, that's something that I notice a lot of people do is like they're always looking for some sort of secret that like is gonna help them improve super fast. But honestly, it's just reps and like there's not a fin that is gonna make you way better or even like I don't different inputs. Like obviously once you get a nice board, then you're pretty set. But like after that, people are kind of always looking for like maybe a wave setup or fins or whatever it is to try and change something, but they
Hmm.
really just need to put in more reps.
Yeah. Yeah. The fins aren't going to determine how good you are.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to be something that kind of helps you a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and something that you like and prefer.
Yep. So like, so like with what we were saying earlier too about fins and 360s and people thinking that if they take their fins out, they'll be able to do a 360, but that's just not right. Like there's a method of doing a 360, and what are your tips for maybe landing a 360?
Well,
There's a
I
lot to
I
it.
have a lot of different tips,
Uh huh.
and when it comes to teaching someone to do a 360, some people need some, and some people need others,
Mm-hmm.
and then some people are just very unique.
Yeah.
But there are a couple very specific ones that I try to tell people. One thing is I try to tell them to do one good pump
Mm-hmm.
and not try to worry about any other pumps. Just go up the face of the wave, come down, and get low. That's the approach. Um, and then after, like you're gonna be bent down on both legs,
Mm-hmm.
both knees are gonna be bent. Then when you start to initiate the 360, you're gonna stand up in the front foot, kind of transfer your weight to the back foot but you don't want to lean back.
Right.
So transfer weight to the back foot and then lift your front leg up and over your right one at the same time, moving your left arm and looking with your head.
Yeah.
Those are like, that's like the main thing that I tell people to get them started with the 360.
Mm-hmm.
Like the lifting the leg up and over your right one, like you're going to step over your right leg.
Yeah.
It puts weight on your back leg. It gives you momentum with the swing of your leg, kind of directs you, gets you started to help you rotate like with your arm and your head. And then coming around to finish it off, just look at the boat, look at where you usually look at when you start to approach,
Yeah.
get low and try to touch the wave with your hand.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of my process. It's not exactly broken down into very specific steps per se, but that's generally what I get people to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the 360 is a very complicated trick if you think about it. It's not an easy trick, and a lot of people want to learn it because that's kind of like the first trick that they see. But like you need to know a lot of stuff before 360, whether that's like staying in the wave or like just pumping. Like you don't. It's kind of like wanting to run before you can even walk. You know, it's like
Yeah.
there's no point in trying a 360 if you can't even stay in the wave, because even if you get it to rotate around, if you don't know how to pump, then you're gonna fall out. So like make sure that you know and have good fundamentals before you start trying a 360, because there's so much to it. But yeah, I would say pretty much similar to you, just like break it down into steps. Especially with fins, you really have to like disconnect the fins on the rotation. So like learning how to disconnect the fins and not trying to like muscle it around with your body, because a lot of people just try and spin like they're on land, or like just try and throw it as hard as they can.
They bottom turn out to try to load it.
Yeah, and then that you end up going over the top. So there's a few different, like usually a few different things that people will do. Like you said, bottom turning into it and going over the top, or they'll like drop their chest as they're trying to do the rotation.
Reaching their hand in too much.
Yeah, reaching their hand in front of them to like try and get that core power to muscle it around. But really, I would just say like really learn how to disconnect the fins, and then everything from there will become so much more simple, because you're not worrying about spinning so much, because it's a 360 and a lot of people think about it as a spin rather than just like disconnecting the fins and carrying your speed forward. Because you can still be carrying speed forward even if you're backwards, sideways. And I think that's a skill that a lot of people should really learn, is just carrying speed no matter which direction they're going. But yeah, like maybe learn the lip slide and learn how to disconnect the fins. Keep your chest up. Don't drop your chest, because if you drop your chest, all your stability is gone, because before you're relying on your fins for that stability, and when you're releasing it for the 360, then your stability is completely gone. So you have to keep that chest up, or else you're going to slide out. But yeah, just really focus on the fundamentals and learning how to control your board and control the rotation, carrying speed, and that will make landing the 360 so much easier.
Yeah, and really try to be conscious of what you're doing with your body, because a lot of times when you're trying to do these things, you can't see yourself doing it, obviously. You have to rely on someone taking a video of you so you can look back on it, or relying on other people to tell you what you were doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can be a little more conscious and try to, think about, is my chest up or was I leaning over? Well, let's think about it. Was your hand all the way in the wave? Oh, maybe your chest was leaning over too much.
Yeah.
Or why did I go on the top of the wave?
Right.
Probably bottom turning.
I'm going to check this.
Okay.
So, you were saying about the 360.
I was just saying, like, try to pay attention to, like,
what
you're doing, because that's, like, a big step. Like, you can't just, like, think about what you need to go do and go try it over and over until you get it.
Yeah, and like you said, like, maybe focus on a few key things, like maybe only 3 things, because sometimes some people will get it around and they'll be, like, so far away from the wave. But I would rather somebody actually get it to release and maybe fall out of the wave sooner, or even catch, like, a toe side edge, rather than, like, doing it wrong, because you're not learning it right. Like, sometimes we say, like, don't even worry about landing the trick. Just like try and do the trick. Don't worry about staying in the wave, because you'll start to rush things. Like, say on your 360, if you're trying to get around as fast as you can, then you're cutting the rotation too tight and too soon. So like you're not getting that full rotation. Whereas if you just slowed it down and really focused on just getting the rotation around, soon it'll slowly build up to being able to really rotate it and carry your speed forward rather than dropping your chest, trying to spin as fast as you can, and then like falling out of the wave as you're coming around, you know?
Yeah. No, and that's the way that I practice my tricks that I don't know how to do yet.
Mm-hmm.
Is I have a trick. Let's say I go to attempt that trick and I only get so far. After I do that, I think, okay, I know I can get this far with the trick,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that these things that I'm doing gets me that far.
Yeah.
Like I want to get this much farther, but I think about it in steps. So
Yeah.
I see what I can do, and then I think, okay, the next part of this trick is this. I want to try to get to there,
Yeah.
and that's all I focus on. Like I have a trick called the magic trick that I
Mhm.
created, and there was a time when in my head it was impossible, and then I was like, well, let me just try this, and I tried one little key aspect of that trick, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually possible.
Yeah.
And then from there it was just try this. Okay, I got that down. Now connect it with this part of the trick. Okay, I got that down. Then
So
finally get to the landing.
the magic trick is 3-shove, or how, like for people that don't know what it is,
Yes,
like
the magic trick is a very complicated trick, but
Yeah.
I still learned it in steps.
right.
Basically what it is a popped, grabbed 3-shove.
Yeah.
Or it's like a shove or hand assisted 3-shove.
So you're grabbing it with your right hand and like throwing it, right?
I basically pop the nose up high to where it's basically almost in front of my face.
Mm-hmm.
Then I reach across with my back hand
Mm-hmm.
and I grab the rail of the board that would be like facing the boat. This is really hard to imagine, but I grab that rail and then I pull it behind me and under me, which
Yep.
rotates the board down underneath me so I can land on it.
Yeah. So for like people that are listening, and how did you break that down for like first step? Was it just popping it and grabbing it, and then from there you worked on throwing it, or like were you just focused on really getting the pop and seeing if you could grab it? What was the first step?
So initially, this all spurred from me trying to learn how to do regular backside shoves.
Mm-hmm.
And every time, like, I had a hard time breaking my fins properly.
Yeah.
And so every time I would pop it up, the board would just fly in front of my face and to the right and over across the top of the wave.
Yeah.
And I would be, like, so frustrated. And then I thought, okay, maybe I can grab it and pull it back. And so that was the first step, was popping it up close enough to where I could reach it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the first challenge.
And you weren't even worried about
I wasn't even
necessarily
worried
landing
about
it.
grabbing it.
Really?
At that point, I was just trying to pop it close enough to where I could grab it.
Oh, wow.
And so once I figured that out, then it was like, okay, I need to learn how to grab this board.
Yeah, because if you think about like the magic trick, like you're saying, it's such a complicated trick. And for you to just even be thinking about, like if I were to think about trying the magic trick, I see you landing them. And it's like, holy cow, so much has to happen for you to land that. But when you first started trying it, you weren't even worried about grabbing it yet. You were just
Yeah.
trying to get it close enough so that you could grab it. And that's interesting, the way that you thought about it and like worked it backwards, like to such a small step of just trying to get it up.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And the process was similar when I was learning the passion pop.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just to finish off that magic trick, after that, I learned how to grab it.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I practiced that was on land, I would hold the board
Yeah.
and I would sometimes go in the water and like hold the board in that spot and then just kind of like toss the board in the air and try to catch it again in that spot, just so my hand could get used to grabbing that spot on the board with the weight of the board. Because, I mean, if you grab the board in the middle, it's going to be easier to hold it as opposed to grabbing the very end, like the nose or the tail. And then after that, it was about rotating, and that's another thing that I would practice on land. I would hold the board in that spot where I'd want to grab it, and I would just kind of swing the board just to see what the weight of the board felt like, trying to spin it in that spot with my hand. And then I would go into the water, hold that spot, and then throw the board down, getting it to spin like how I would want. And then eventually I would jump off the end of the dock, spinning the board and trying to get it underneath me. And then I would go behind the boat and try to do it.
Yeah, because you could get so much more reps in doing it on land because you're not relying on anyone either. So you could try that hundreds of times.
Yeah.
But if you were doing that behind the boat, that could take a whole month to get that many reps. So that was smart of you to do that on land. So for anybody trying like a 360, you could take those same steps of just breaking it down. And like Jake said, not even worrying about like getting the first step. Just try and like start to release or try to get the lip slide. Don't worry about the 360 as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
It'll start to come as you start to do it more.
And the 360 is something that you can practice on the ground, on land too. I do it all the time. Like I try to do the specific motions that or tips that I give other people, and I always try to like simulate it on the back of the boat and stuff.
Yeah.
And that honestly has helped me like improve my 360 because, you know, when I'm doing it on land, I'm on flat level ground.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing to keep in mind when doing the 360. You don't want to lean your body off axis when you're doing it. You want to keep your chest upright. And so it's a good way to practice spinning and trying to, you know, fight the little G forces that are pulling you out which way or whatever. So you can pay attention to, is your back flat and upright, or are you leaning over too much? Things like that.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool.
The next thing Dylan and I want to talk about, which can be bad but also generally pretty funny, is pet peeves when we're out on the water just having fun or wake surfing or just, you know, out boating, doing whatever we want to do out there. So some of those pet peeves, at least for me, I know the first thing that comes to mind are jet skis.
Of course.
Tell me about some jet skis, Dylan.
Yeah, jet skis are crazy. Kind of when you're on a jet ski, even like if I hop on one, you're kind of in your own world, you know? Like you're just ripping around on those things, and you can't really, I mean, you can trust some jet skiers, specifically the stand-ups, but like if you see a jet ski coming behind you, it's instantly like you get kind of nervous, especially if it's not you on the water. Like if you and I are riding and like there's a jet ski behind us, I wouldn't be too worried about you because usually you and I are like looking around and checking our surroundings. So, but like on a lesson, if somebody's hitting our rollers or they're just all in all really annoying. Like one time my uncle actually fell and like a jet ski was coming from the side and I saw it coming. He didn't see it coming. And my uncle fell and the jet ski literally hit the first roller. Not like the second one, the first one. So like where it's whitewashed, not even a roller. Yeah. And literally it was the closest I've ever seen somebody to getting hit. It was like from me to you, that close.
Jeez.
And so like
he didn't get hit though.
He didn't get hit.
Okay.
Yeah, it was so close. And he like pops up out of the water and it goes right by him. Like he didn't notice either. So yeah, if you're wake surfing, be aware of your surroundings. That's, like you said, jet skis the biggest one. Do you got anything to say about jet skis?
Yeah, I have a lot to say about jet skis.
Jake has a horn on his boat.
I do. I have an air horn I keep on my boat, specifically for jet skis or other boats that are not paying attention. Mm-hmm. Lake Austin is the lake that we ride on, and it's unlike most lakes. It's not like a traditional lake.
It's basically a river.
It's basically a river. It's a dammed river.
Yeah.
And so it's very narrow. Mm-hmm. It's not wide and open. So for the most part, you travel the lake in a directional form, just like you're on the street.
Yeah.
Like you drive on the right side. And sometimes you can get mixed up a little bit. It's not a big deal, but we generally don't drive on the left side.
Yeah.
This is America.
Yeah. This is America.
But yeah, lots of times jet skis will be driving on the wrong side of the lake, coming head on with boats, or sometimes there will be like a little convoy or with like 2 or 3 jet skis, like some friends hanging out. And like, again, like I have no problem with people having fun on the jet skis, but you know, try to be considerate and aware of your surroundings. Like what I was going to say is what's really annoying to me is when I'm pulling a surfer and I'm only going 10, 11 miles an hour and I see jet skiers up ahead, they're ripping it, whatever. We get closer and closer. They're still ripping it. And then at some point they stop and they're like not looking back and they're just like sitting there. And maybe I have other boats coming toward me. And then it's like, I got nowhere to go. Sorry, surfer, you got to stop. Kill it. That can be annoying sometimes. Not a safety concern really, but a safety concern that is a pet peeve is when the jet skiers like to trail behind and just continuously jump your wave
Yeah.
or just like ride it. And then some jet skiers don't know how to, drive the jet skis very well. And so they'll get like stuck like in your wake.
Yeah.
And they're just like, they start to lose control a little bit. And I mean, if they're far back, you don't have to worry about them hitting you. But like I've had a couple jet skis and small boats like almost hit me, like hit my boat because they were maybe being a little irresponsible or just not paying attention to the waves that they had to travel over to get past me.
Yeah.
And there was one specific moment when this guy hit these rollers, and I was picking up my wife Colby, and I was starting to turn around and getting ready to, take off with her. But this boat like was driving on the wrong side of the lake too.
Yeah.
Hit these waves, and it like jolted the boat directly toward mine. And I was like, oh my gosh. And obviously these people were freaking out too, and they were trying to stop the boat too. But it just like wasn't enough. And so I literally had to throw it in reverse, and I had like a split second to like make that decision, but also like look back and see, is my rider directly behind the boat? Otherwise I can't do that, and I just got to let this boat hit the boat.
Yeah.
That would have been terrifying. But I had enough time, a split second, to look back and see that I was clear to reverse it really quick. I don't even know if I looked back at the boat before I started reversing, and I definitely did not worry about the rope hitting my prop. But that was a big scare, and I could tell that those people were drunk that day. So that's why I keep an air horn on the boat, and why jet skis can be, well, I mean, that wasn't a jet ski that day, but those are some pet peeves.
Yeah. Irresponsible people on the water. And a lot of it, too, is just they don't know. Like, a lot of jet skiers, maybe they haven't drove boats or jet skis that much, and they're maybe rentals. And, yeah, they're just not very smart. And driving a boat is a lot different than driving a car, because you have to be under power for it to go, Like you said, people getting stuck in your wave, like they start to feel that, and they're like, let off the gas. But you have to keep the gas on to keep going.
Yeah, there's like a lot less regulation with boat requirements, boat safety, like if you need a license, or like a lot of people are able to get away with it too, even with laws that are in place. Yeah. So like I feel like the lake and boating is like can be like a place where people are very uneducated, or they underestimate like the power of the boat or the water and stuff like that.
And a lot of people just don't know, and they don't do it a lot. Specifically, I was in Arizona, and I went out to the lake 2 weeks ago, and I was on the jet ski testing it out because we were going to Lake Powell. And this boat launches. This guy launches his wife on his nice Malibu, and she's like, "It's not turning on," and he's like, just pulls out and like just leaves her, and she's like, "It's not turning on. It's not turning on." And I was like, "Do you need help?" And she's like, "No, I think we got it. I think I'm good." And like her boat is getting blown, and it's gonna go into rocks. And I'm like, "Are you sure? Like, do you want me? Maybe I could like hook up a rope?" And she's like, "No, I think we're good." So I'm like, "Okay, I'll wait a few more minutes." And I'm like, "Okay, this boat's gonna go into the rocks, so I'm gonna go over there." Gosh. So like I attach a rope, start pulling, and like it's just they haven't done it that much. And they were just gonna let their boat hit the rocks. Like if I wasn't there, their boat would be in a cliff in rocks, dude. It was crazy. Yeah. And they were just like gonna do that. So I was like, holy cow, you're just gonna let your boat go into these rocks? I would be freaking out because I swear the wind was so bad, and it was just blowing them straight into these rocks. And I was like, wow.
Oh my gosh.
It was crazy, dude. If I wasn't there, their boat would literally be in rocks. So I towed it around, and like I'm pulling it back to the dock with the jet ski. I had to like keep turning it on and off because it was like jerking. And I finally get it over there, and the husband's walking down, and it's like maybe 10, 15 feet from the dock. And he's like, "You can just leave it there." And I was like, you don't want me to pull it up to the dock right here? And he's like, "Oh, if you think you can, yeah, do it." So I'm like, okay. So I pulled it up to the dock. They're like, "Do you got a jump starter?" The batteries were dead.
Oh my gosh.
It was so crazy. But yeah, I mean, people just don't do it as much as they drive a car. So it's just experience. And
there's not a lot of people telling them you need to do it like this or whatever.
Yeah.
So
any other pet peeves?
Well, yeah, we kind of got off on a tangent with the
Yeah.
pet peeves, but yeah, I guess another pet peeve for me is when the pontoons get stuck in your wake,
Oh, dude, that's
like
so
right behind
funny.
you, or even some pontoons literally trail right behind you, and they think, "Oh, I'm going slow, I'm paying attention." But sometimes there's so many people on the pontoons, the driver can't see what's up
Yeah.
ahead, or like if you're too close, you can't see like I don't know stuff that's super close to the boat,
Yeah.
especially if you're trailing close behind another boat.
Yeah.
So. That's another safety concern and a pet peeve. But
Yeah. Yeah, and we've done it so much. Like we can literally look at a jet ski or a boat and kind of know if they're going to be dangerous. You know,
yeah,
like you can look at one and like by the way they're driving or controlling the boat, it's like okay, that guy could be sketchy, so stay away from him or be ready for something to happen. And that just comes from reps too, but yeah, a lot can happen on the water and it happens fast too.
yeah, and don't be afraid to honk the horn if you think you're in danger,
Yeah.
because your safety is more important than a horn
Yeah.
or someone's, you know,
Yeah,
however,
it's
however they feel about that.
Yeah, you could die out there, and
Yeah.
you're responsible for your rider and keeping them safe too. So that's the scary part. But yeah, there's a lot of different pet peeves. I think we could go for a while, but
Another pet peeve of mine is when I see wake surfers that are staying in the wave with slacking the rope the whole time.
yeah,
Just throw the rope, baby.
yeah, that can be dangerous too. Dude.
That can
They
be
wrap
dangerous
it
too.
up, and I think
You're
that's
good enough to ride without the rope, bro.
Yeah,
Just do it.
and it's honestly probably making bad habits too, holding onto the rope But especially specifically when people are like pulling themselves in and like wrapping it, that could be super sketchy. That's a pet peeve of mine. And then it's like you're telling them to throw the rope, and they're like, "I'm just getting warmed up." You're like, "No, you're warmed up. You're fine. Throw the rope."
Look at the slack in the rope. You
Yeah.
haven't used it at all.
They're like pumping, and the rope's like swinging.
Jump rope?
Yeah, literally, dude. But yeah, throw the rope in. Don't wrap it up. Hold on to the handle. You'll be good.
Yeah. Well, those are some pet peeves. I do gotta say though, this next thing that we're just gonna touch on it real quick. It's definitely not a pet peeve,
Yeah.
unless you like getting beat by younger riders. Jet Shred's first ever 9 big.
Crazy.
Dude, that was freaking wild.
Yeah, I can't believe that, dude. It's spun so fast, and it's crazy how fast people are improving, specifically the younger kids. It's like they're growing up wake surfing
Yeah.
and like growing into it at the same time. But they're getting so good, and it's crazy to see.
Yeah, and those of you that don't know what a 9 big is, you got to know what a regular big spin is first. But basically, you're shoving the board 2.5 full rotations under your feet, and then you're spinning your body 180 degrees the same direction,
Yeah.
which, I mean, even the 720 big spin blew my mind, and only a handful of people have done that one.
Yeah.
So this is something else, dude.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude. I mean, I wonder if people will start landing 9 shoves or even adding another rotation to that 9 big. We'll see where it goes. But
Yeah.
the younger generation is getting crazy, and hopefully we can keep up.
Hopefully we can keep up.
We got to practice even more.
Yeah, we got a lot to practice to keep up with these riders. Because, like, some of these riders, they just, I don't know why, just like Jet Shreds. Like,
They're just naturally talented.
he just starts off as a pro, basically. I mean, he didn't,
Yeah.
but come on, he's there.
Yeah, dude. And
Let's
I
go.
would say I'm not necessarily naturally talented. I mean, I picked it up kind of fast, but it seems like
Not
they pick
like
it up
these
so
riders.
fast. Yeah. It's like I gotta work so hard to maybe get close to that. You know, I gotta
Yeah.
ride so much. Not saying they don't work hard, but they're naturally talented at the same time.
Hey, well, next time in our next podcast, we can talk a little bit more about maybe why these younger riders are learning at such a high rate,
Yeah.
and why, maybe we didn't learn at such a fast rate like them,
Yeah.
but we still kind of did in a
Yeah.
way. So
Compared to where it was at the time.
where it was at the time. So I think we could get into that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, I think that's all we have today for episode 9, y'all.
Yeah.
But it's been fun. We're looking forward to episode 10.
Yeah, let's
Can't
do it.
believe we've gotten this far, dude.
I know, it's so fun.
I
All
can
right.
believe it.
Yeah, we're going thousands.
Thousands. Let's go.
All right, Wake Surfology out.
Peace.